When a single corporate email lands in your inbox with no context and mandatory attendance, your survival instincts immediately kick into high gear. I was sitting at my desk double-checking defense supply paperwork when the calendar notification flashed across my monitor, inviting the entire company to an unexpected afternoon assembly. In my 9 years as a senior regulatory officer, I had learned that surprise company meetings never bring good news for anyone. I managed the federal permits that allowed our military tech to leave the country legally, a high-stakes job that kept our firm out of government crosshairs. My daily work was far from glamorous, but it was the quiet pillar holding our multi-million-dollar operations together. I did not care about executive perks or flashy networking events, because my primary focus was maintaining a spotless compliance record while providing care for my aging mother, whose medical bills grew higher every month. To cover those rising costs, I spent a few hours each weekend advising a small non-profit that modified adaptive hardware for disabled former soldiers. Everything was fully declared, transparent, and officially approved by our legal team. Yet my commitment to doing things right meant nothing to our new executive team. Our newly hired corporate director, Brenda, was obsessed with corporate buzzwords and personal visibility, constantly treating complex federal regulations like minor inconveniences. She measures success through polished presentations rather than lawful execution, ignoring my warnings about the strict laws governing defense exports. On Thursday afternoon, all 200 employees joined a silent video call, where Brenda took center stage alongside senior management. Without warning, she displayed my full name across the main screen and announced my immediate termination, claiming my volunteer work was a severe breach of company values and a clear conflict of interest. Instead of pleading my case or panicking in front of my silent co-workers, I calmly opened my phone and located a pre-drafted message. That email was my official withdrawal notice to our government liaison, informing federal regulators that I was stepping down as the company's sole licensed officer immediately. The moment I tapped send and exited the meeting, I effectively stripped the corporation of its legal right to ship controlled hardware across international borders. As I packed my coat and walked out into the afternoon quiet, I knew the executive team had just created a massive regulatory disaster for themselves. Sitting in my parked car, I watched the office building reflection in the mirror while considering the severe legal chain reaction I had just set off. Under federal law, a defense contractor cannot ship a single component without an active, approved compliance officer registered in the national system. Replacing a certified officer requires extensive background checks and government vetting that usually takes months to finalize. Brenda had publicly humiliated me to make a point, but in doing so, she had locked down the company's entire supply chain and exposed every single outgoing shipment to massive administrative fines. By late afternoon, the executive leadership team was locked inside a conference room, desperately trying to contain the damage as warning flags started popping up across their logistics portals. Our lead compliance reviewer, a sharp former officer named Victor, was forced to explain to the panicking executives that every order processed after my departure was now an illegal transfer. 5 major international orders had already departed our facility that morning, each carrying the potential for over $1 million in individual penalties. There was no temporary workaround or quick administrative fix, leaving the leadership team completely paralyzed. While the office was falling into chaos, I received a phone call from Sarah, the chief counsel at a rival defense organization. She explained that their monitoring system had picked up my status change in the National Registry, and her team wanted to hire me immediately to lead their international compliance division. They offered me complete operational freedom, a higher salary, and a smooth transition to handle their active portfolio. I told her I would consider the opportunity, finally feeling the heavy stress of the past 9 years lift off my shoulders as I settled into a quiet evening at home. Over the next few days, the fallout inside my former workplace escalated into a full-scale corporate crisis. Major international clients began demanding updated authorization certificates before releasing multi-million-dollar contract payments, leaving the executive team unable to provide valid paperwork. Sales executives were scrambling to appease furious partners, while Brenda tried to convince the chief executive officer that a replacement candidate would be cleared in a matter of days. However, government registries do not bend for executive promises, and the public system continued to show their status as suspended due to a missing primary officer. The panicking executives soon realized that their only path out of the regulatory trap was to convince me to return and reauthorize their operations. My phone began ringing non-stop with blocked numbers and desperate voicemail messages from senior directors claiming there had been a simple misunderstanding. They offered to open negotiations and collaborate on new terms, suddenly treating me as indispensable after publicly labeling me as disloyal. I chose to leave every message unanswered, knowing that their polite requests were merely an attempt to save their own careers from the impending legal storm. Within a week, I accepted the position at the rival organization, moving into a bright new office with absolute authority over our regulatory protocols. Meanwhile, official federal auditors arrived at my former company to inspect every transaction log and internal email sequence leading up to my termination. Their review uncovered a string of unauthorized exports processed without a certified officer, exposing the company to devastating financial penalties and severe contract forfeitures. The very contracts they had spent years trying to secure were systematically cancelled and transferred to my new employer, leaving Brenda and the executive team facing the total collapse of their business. Standing near the window of my new office, I looked out over the city while confirming the final clearance codes for our latest international delivery. I had not sought revenge or caused a scene when they tried to destroy my career. I simply stepped aside and let the weight of their own arrogance crush them. They thought they were eliminating an ordinary employee, but they had actually removed the single foundation holding their entire operation above water. Real authority does not come from loud speeches or corporate titles, but from the quiet integrity of doing your work so well that everything falls apart the second you leave.